what's going on, guys? I got another review for you today, except this time, instead of a movie, I actually have a show to show you. Actually, it's like maybe a streaming show. I don't know really what to call it anymore. It's not really on TV. It's like a streaming thing now. Today, we're going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett. Now, when it comes to Star Wars, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of toxicity almost in the community that they have, and that comes from a bunch of fanboys who want their theories to be so solved and a part of their own reality, and they don't have actual experts on the criteria. They like to think that they're experts, but I'm an expert. Look at me. I got a Star Wars t-shirt on. I have Ewok pajama pants on. I have an Empire Strikes Back poster for its 40th anniversary. Look at this shit. Oh, fine. You want more stuff? Okay, well, guess what? I got a Mandalorian Funko Pop. I got a weird-looking Yoda Funko Pop. I got a Darth Vader cool-looking Funko Pop. I've got count 'em, two Baby Yoda Grogu Funko Pops. I've got a R2-D2 that holds popcorn and pop at the top. I spent $50 on this thing. And I also have this monstrosity of a beast, and I love it. So, yeah, I'd like to say I'm a bit of an expert. Now, I want to talk about this show, and it's been out for a little bit now, and obviously stuff spreads on the internet very quickly, so we're going to talk about spoilers today. If you haven't seen the show, I would say watch the show if you really want to, and then come back for the review if you don't want anything spoiled. We're going to get a little heavy in depth with this review. Now, I'm not really sure how to come at this review because it's got 7 episodes in it, and there is a drastic shift when you get further down into the series. So the best thing I can do is I can start from kind of the beginning of the series, and it starts with Boba Fett right after or during the events of the Sarlacc pit, where he fell off from the thing when they were trying to push Luke and Han and Chewie from the Return of the Jedi into the Sarlacc pit. It takes place right after that happens. He's fighting in the Sarlacc pit and he's trying to escape. And it's actually a really cool thing, and I did like it for the most part. But then when he leaves the Sarlacc pit, it's like he gets captured by the Tusken Raiders, and then he's like a prisoner of them at first, but then learns the culture of the Tusken Raiders, and he grows a bond with them, and he shows them how to fight, and is just appreciating them for what they have done, and he proved himself, being a part of this culture, which is a fine story. I did enjoy moments of it, but along with that, at least for the first 4 episodes, it's cut back and forth between the stuff that happened on Tatooine when he fell into the Sarlacc pit and then came out of the Sarlacc pit and with the Tuskens, and it bounces to the events after the season 2 of Mandalorian, where you see him at the end of the Mandalorian season, and he takes over Jabba the Hutt's old throne, and we were left on a cliffhanger being like, oh, what's going to happen now? So it flashes back between the two a lot, and in my opinion, it's pretty jarring for a lot of the story. My personal opinion on this is the fact that if you wanted to do the backstory of Boba Fett after the Sarlacc pit stuff, you could have honestly condensed this down to maybe an episode and a half. Because quite honestly, it is an interesting thing that happens, yes, but we've also it's almost ruined in a sense because we've seen him a lot in Mandalorian season 2 as well. So it's almost like you're treading on water that we kind of have familiarity with at this point. Like, we know he escaped the Sarlacc pit, and we know that he gets his armor back at some point, and the show just kind of once it is done with the Tusken Raiders part of things, and then it's shifting its focus back into how it ties into the Mandalorian, it loses its way at times. And the biggest thing about the show when it's showing the stuff post season 2 of Mandalorian and with the actual book of Boba Fett, really the main story of this is when he takes over the throne at Tatooine of the Jabba the Hutt's old throne. He needs to build the respect of the city that he's in Mos Espa, and he's trying to stop spice trades that are ravaging the town, and you see the interactions that he has with all these people because he is technically a legend in the story. And while that's fine and all, I just don't think it ever progressed at a certain point. To be honest, I think they took up way too much time doing his backstory with the Tusken Raiders, and they didn't delve deep enough into this Tatooine stuff. And they spend the entire series almost in Tatooine. There's maybe an episode and a half that isn't with Tatooine, and that's because once we are kind of like wrapping sort of some stuff up with the Tatooine stuff, where Boba Fett is like fighting for his territory against Jabba the Hutt's like cousins, he then has to call in favors from people, and he calls in Mando, and he gets all of episode 5 on his own. And that's where really the show started to shift too, is once we got away from Boba Fett, the show got exponentially better in a way. We get episode 5 of Mando entirely. There is like only a hint of Boba Fett at the very end, and that's when his assistant comes up and is like, hey, he needs your help. Here's a bunch of credits to help. And then he's like, it's on the house. That is the only reference he has in that 5th episode. He's not in that episode at all. And it is a little weird to see because, again, this show is called The Book of Boba Fett. This isn't The Mandalorian. You know, we had 2 seasons of that already, which were exponential. They were so fucking good. And I want more of that. But when they presented Boba Fett's story, I was like, let's see where that goes. Like, if they would have called this something else that wasn't the Book of Boba Fett, I think it would have worked out a little bit better. And instantly, when Mando comes in, a lot of the stuff that was actually weaker in the beginning of the series gets a lot better, especially the action scenes. I'm really not gonna harp too much on this because the actor is probably a little bit on the older side, and like, stunts are kind of, some people are really good with them and some people aren't really good with them. But it felt to me like the stunts and the performances and the action and how it's shot and how it was performed even was way better when Mando came around. So not only do we get the story of Mando, basically like the intro of episode 5 is him taking out some dude with the saber that he has, and he cuts himself on the leg, so he's showing that he's like not fully equipped with the black saber, and he's still trying to work through things. He ends up finding the old Mandalorians that was in season 1 of the first show, where there's only 2 of them left, I want to say now, or at least they're like the last 3 of their kind, and they have a really nice fight there over the saber at one point, and then we end up finding out that the staff that was made for him after season 2 from Ahsoka, that is then turned into a gift for Grogu, because now Mando wants to see him before he helps Boba Fett. So not only does episode 5 take up entirely of Mando and almost none of Boba Fett, in episode 6 we now jump to Grogu and Luke Skywalker, which is honestly, it is really cool to see, right? I saw R2-D2 in the show at this episode. Ahsoka was in this episode trying to guide, Mando to Grogu and Luke while they were training. I thought Luke way better in this than he did in the end of season 2 for Mandalorian. I thought the CG or whatever they had used was a lot better. The line delivery was a little bit weird at times. He didn't always feel like Luke Skywalker, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it. I think that there was a lot of cute moments in this, montage that he has where Luke is like flipping around with Grogu on his back. So it's kind of like, of old times where, Luke trained with Yoda and like he's jumping around, and like, I'm not going to lie, when he pulled out the lightsaber and starts practicing with his lightsaber, that's just the instinct, the like, oh my god, Star Wars lightsabers, oh my god, it's so cool, it's Luke Skywalker. Like, yeah, we have that natural feeling. It's like, oh my god, it's my hero from years ago with the lightsaber, and he's practicing with it, and it looks really cool. But the problem also arises with this again. This doesn't feel like Boba Fett's story for the last like 3 episodes for the most part. There's so much going on in 5 that doesn't involve him, and then 6 tells a total tangent with this, which then brings it back to episode 7, when all they're worried about is we need to face the war that's going to come to us by the Syndicate, clan or whatever it was that's going to run through this town. And along with that episode, we get Mando trying to go to they now call it Freetown, and it's from the second season, where it's the same town where he visits and where he obtains Boba Fett's actual suit. He meets a marshal again, and he asks him for help to help out with this war that's about to happen because they're severely, like understaffed in that way. And while there's some cute stuff there, it's like a little play on stuff from the second season. They also introduce an older character. Believe it's from the animated series called Cad Bane, and that is a really cool character. When I saw the teaser of it on like social medias, like I hadn't seen the episode yet, and I kind of saw a glimpse of the show and like what it was. Like I was like, oh, this looks really cool, looks really interesting, and I kind of want to like get really invested in this. And he is cool for the like maybe quarter of an episode, if you even want to call it that, and like the pieces that he's in the final episode. At the end of episode 6 too, they also have a final scene. This is the cliffhanger for the show leading into the season finale, where Luke Skywalker uh, shows Grogu the gift that Mando gave him that was crafted for him. It's like armor basically. It's like almost like chain link, but it's made of the actual armor that Mandalorians carry. And then he also pulls out Yoda's lightsaber, which again is cool, and I enjoy that for the nostalgia factor alone. And it's like, oh my god, he's gonna take the saber, and then he's left with, you can only choose one or the other because of a Jedi. You have all the blah 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 blah, the religious beliefs and all this other stuff. So you have to choose whether or not you want to go and be with Mando for now, or do you want to continue your training as a Jedi? But in doing so as a Jedi, you may not see him again because a short time for you is a long time for him, and like you may not see each other again. So it becomes a whole emotional thing, and that's how the episode ends. And episode 7 is just basically a blow off of everything in the story that has happened so far. Boba Fett and the crew kind of take Mos Espa as like a standing ground after the bar was exploded in the previous episode. That kind of basically draws the line in the sand, as like, hey, we're about to do this right now. So Mando and them all kind of, gather into the city. They're ready to fight. We had Cad Bane do some stuff. He has a face-off with Boba Fett for a little bit. And then eventually what happens is all-out war breaks out, which there's some fun elements to there. We get a lot of cool stuff in the final episode of the season with the Mandalorians, the bounty hunters fighting with each other, like the bouncing off of each other and flying in the sky and using all the different tech that they have. That is really cool to see, and that's more stuff that I wish I actually would have seen in the show. And then later on, as the episode progresses, they're realizing that they're not manned because Cad Bane had killed the marshal at Freetown, so now the people are a little more hesitant to show up, but then they eventually do show up, and it's like, it's for the marshal, we're trying to help you guys out because, we need to take vengeance on him. So then the good guys get the upper hand. Eventually, Grogu makes the decision to take the armor, and then he is now on the planet of Tatooine with Mando. And I don't know how I necessarily feel about that. Because really, season 1 and season 2 is heavily influenced in The Mandalorian for Mando and Grogu's relationship, of course. And the beginning of the show, like, I believe Grogu doesn't show up either until the very end of season or episode 1 or the very end of episode 2. But they have a lot of character building, and they have a lot of stuff that is interesting enough to keep you hooked into the show without at the baby Yoda craze, right? And I fear that with Grogu coming back into the fold and Mando kind of being like, I gotta protect the kid now again, is a little bit of a disservice to the fans of the first 2 seasons, because at the end of season 2 it is a great emotional ride that we have where Luke shows up and he kicks ass and he tears up all these droids or whatever, and then he offers to take Grogu to help him train as a Jedi, because that was the whole point of season 2, is to get him back to his kind. Now, you're undercutting a little bit of the arc, maybe entire arc, of Grogu training as a Jedi now, because you just want him to be back with Mando, when Mandalorian is at first predicated on the fact that this is Star Wars. You can do whatever you want. Star Wars is one of the most perfect franchises in the world because there is so much you can do. in this story. It is a fantasy fucking world full of aliens with laser swords and laser blasters and a mystical fucking being force that happens that you can move shit around. And there's good guys and there's bad guys and there's fun shit all around, right? With themes and feelings in the stories. If you just rely on this nostalgic stuff and you just rely on old rehashed things and don't bring any new, refreshing, and inspiring ideas, the content becomes worse. Now, I'll slightly do a slight tangent on this because I want to prove my point a little bit more with this. Is when the original trilogy came out, everyone loves the trilogy after years and years because they revere, the original Star Wars is revolutionary, and then Empire Strikes Back, divisive at first, but now seen as one of the best. Return of the Jedi is a pretty good capper to that trilogy. People wanted more. George Lucas decides, hey, I really want to dive into the aspect of Anakin Skywalker before he became Darth Vader. Prequels outside of the third one, which has its moments in its, time in the sun, like it definitely has some things working for it, but most of the prequel stuff sucks. It's shit. It's not good. Almost like 98% of those movies are pretty bad. So then we have a void of nothing good Star Wars wise, unless you watch the Clone War shows, which what I heard is exponentially better than a lot of things that Star Wars has done, at least in the most recent time too, outside of probably Mandalorian. And then we wait and wait and wait. Disney buys the property of Star Wars, and then they do a trilogy of that. And I think the first two movies that they made are really good. I thought the first movie coming back hits exactly where it needed to. It presents a really cool story. It brings back old characters and progresses some different motives for them, and it shows how times has changed, and it leaves you on a cliffhanger again, and I really did enjoy that. The second movie is fucking great as well, in my opinion. There is a lot of bad in the movie though too, especially with the casino stuff, but the themes and overall stuff that happens with Rey and them is great in my opinion. And then you get the fucking third movie that just completely shits on everything that the second movie did for it. Like, it was so baffling to watch because J.J. Abrams is like, fuck Ryan Johnson, I want to do my story, and I'm going to do all these subtle shots at him, and I'm going to completely undermine everything that was made in the second movie. And Ryan Johnson's not clear out of this either, too, by the way. I mean, Ryan Johnson fucked up a little bit of Finn's story as well, so there is that on his conscience, but there is a lot of stuff that was in that second movie that was great. But what did Rise of Skywalker do that Mandalorian is starting to fall into right now? It's starting to fall on its, like, heels and is like, oh, like let's do the remembrance of like let's show the old Death Star in the third movie. Oh, let's show the let's get the Baby Yoda stuff going back again. Ooh! And I think what's unfortunate with it is that Star Wars fans want a lot of new things, and I personally do for sure. And I don't want it to be consistently falling back on the things that we do love. Because yes, we do love the series and we do love the franchise, but there is so much you can do with it. So then at the end of the series, they kill Cad Bane, which is a really just such a it honestly feels very Marvel of Star Wars to do in this, where they present a character that everybody wanted, and they just completely undermine him. They don't use him a lot in the show, and then he's just offed at the fucking end of the show. He's just gone, like he's dead, which sucks, but it's like, I don't know, what did you expect at this point? Like, a lot of these shows, like they kind of just like try to cater to certain aspects of stories, and then they're just kind of like, it's done. I guess that's what they wanted. I guess when we wanted a little bit more. So at the end of the show, they basically win the war. They beat out all the guys that was in Mos Espa. They end up killing the mayor of the town and the syndicate leader. So now Boba Fett basically runs the territory now. Mando and Grogu are now in a ship and they fly off into space to take on some new adventures. And then, like, the only post credit or like semi mid credit scene that we have left at the end of the show is the sheriff is actually placed into the bath that Boba Fett uses to heal himself, and they're gonna resurrect him with the same mechanical stuff that was used on Boba Fett's assistant, to like help her when she got shot in the first season of Mandalorian, and now they're gonna fix him up and bring him back probably in, the following seasons of whether it's Mandalorian or Boba Fett. And I will give one praise for Star Wars that I will probably always give over most shows, especially Marvel maybe, because I know that's like really their only other big competition as far as like big money making content, is the costume designs and the set designs and the CGI is fucking out of this world. Like, Marvel has really good CG for the most part. Some of it seems a little more glossier than it maybe should be, but they do have a lot of great CG in their movies. Star Wars, for whatever reason, and I don't know how it is with their CG specifically. I know that like all the practical stuff that they do, like Baby Yoda is like a practical puppet, and like a lot of the costumes like that they use in the shows to present the bars and like all like the headpieces or whatever that they wear, those are all real. So I gravitate more to the stuff that is presented better, and when it's presented in a real manner, it just comes across better on the screen. But like the CGI for whatever reason in these shows, for the most part, I won't say all of it, but the movies for sure though as well. Like at least the sequel trilogy as well, and that the or not the prequel trilogy, that never the prequel trilogy. But most of the movies and most of the shows tend to have really great CG. So if nothing else, the production value of Star Wars is always top notch. Honestly, this is a good middle of the ground type content for Star Wars. There's a lot of lore and there's a lot of stuff going on in the show that a lot of people, if you just threw them in there, they're not going to know. But like if you know Star Wars and your understanding of the content and you understand all the stuff that they're going for in the shows, it's not bad. It's pretty average. It's pretty like down the middle sort of stuff. So I wouldn't say it's the worst thing in the world. I just hope that they can do a lot better with all the stuff that's going to come out soon. Like the Ahsoka show, I think it should be pretty good, but we'll see. I cannot wait for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I absolutely positively cannot wait for this. I'm like fingers crossed that all these shows are great because in the end of the day, that's what the Star Wars fans want. We just want good Star Wars content, and I think that Disney has the capability of doing it because they make too much fucking money not to put some forethought into making content that is Star Wars. But the other problem with that too is that they also made some of the sequel trilogy pretty shit. So it's like you take the good with the bad with Disney. So we'll see what we get for the rest of the show. But in the end, I think the Boba Fett show is all right. I'm gonna get the Book of Boba Fett series 3 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate every one of you watching the show. And also making fun of my stupid ass shit that I have in this room. If you like the video, please give it a like. Please share around. Please do subscribe. Helps me out a lot. And I will talk to y'all next time. Take care.